Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Marcy Nitzberg. I'm Sales Development Executive here at ACGI. Today, I'm excited to welcome Michael Jones, Director of Mobile Technologies at Results Direct, which is one of ACGI's strategic partners through our Resource Partner Program. And we're also happy to welcome today many of our customers, as well as prospective customers, and the general public in the association world and credentialing world. This webinar is part of ACGI's Extending the Value webinar series, where we like to invite our resource partners to talk about different subject matters that they are experts in those areas. So I'd like to introduce Michael Jones with Results Direct to take us through the webinar today, which is Revenue Generation Through Your Mobile Event App. And he's going to tell us all about Results Direct Mobile Event App Event Central. But first, let me give you a little bit of background about Michael. Michael Jones has more than 15 years of experience providing strategy consulting and leading mobile initiatives for numerous organizations, leveraging a variety of technologies, including native apps and mobile web development. He leads the mobile practice at Results Direct. As a mobile evangelist and strategist, Michael is also a frequent speaker on mobile technologies and best practices for many organizations, including ASAE. Those of you who are customers of ACGI and who were here with us for our Knowledge Days Users Conference back in May, you probably remember Michael. He was one of our guest speakers. And if you were using the mobile conference app, it was actually powered by Event Central. You all know that conferences and events can be very overwhelming. There's a lot going on, lots of details and timing to be aware of, and we all have our mobile devices and smartphones with us at all times. So it's just a really great tool that put all of the different details from hotel and Wi-Fi access to sessions and schedules, maps of the conference, biographies of presenters, alerts, updates, social interaction opportunities for attendees, and so much more right at everyone's fingertips. So it was just a really great conference experience for everyone. It was a huge success. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Michael and hand over the controls to him. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Marcy, for the introduction. So I appreciate that. And welcome everybody to the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will go from tropical here into the webinar. All right, Marcy, are you able to see my screen now?
I am.
Wonderful. All right, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And first of all, as Marcy said, Michael Jones with Results Direct, and very excited to have an opportunity to talk about this topic. One of my favorite topics because not only does it deal with mobile, but it deals with making money. And it is a very rare thing that technology will pay us, right? I know every time I go into Best Buy, I wish that was the case, especially with the new VR system that I'm looking at. I was like, if only I could walk into the store and the sales guy would be like, and if you get this VR system, we'll pay you money. That would be awesome. So not often the case there, but in this case, with mobile apps, there is opportunities to generate revenue and to increase ROI for the organizations. And so that's really what we're going to dive into today. Just to say briefly too, with Results Direct, we have been serving associations now for 21 years with web services, website design, hosting, CMS services, and then I joined them. I'm actually in my 7th year, almost my 8th year now with them, and really been able to see the growth of mobile apps. And so over here we do custom app development. We have several app products as well. We do the full suite of mobile web design work. And so one thing that's nice about that is we are very technology agnostic. We really like finding the best technology to fit whatever the challenge or opportunity is. So with that, today's webinar, I want to give credit where credit is due. Many of you, if you are current ACGI customers, know Gary Hines of Southern Gas Association. And we are really going to be covering a lot of information that he and I developed together. We actually most recently were able to present some of this down at PCMA down in Austin, Texas. And so definitely I want to give him credit for a lot of the details and the case studies that are coming out of today's webinar. And just to give you a little bit of background, SGA is a ACGI customer. They also do use the Event Central app. And so a lot of the examples we're going to go through today are specific to those two platforms. However, if you use a different event app platform, hopefully a lot of these same opportunities exist. And SGA is a small staff trade association, and so as we run through some actual numbers, it's always good to keep in mind that different organizations will have different revenue opportunities based on their size and their and the discipline or area that they work in. So as a great example, another organization that I often reference when it comes to revenue generation is SNMMI. They are a mid-staff professional association and in the medical and scientific arena. And as a great example, when they sell one sponsorship for their annual meeting, it's $15,000. And so just to give a little context as we go through some of the numbers today. So the examples we're going to talk about is the Go Mobile at SGA app, which is available at the store. And so if anyone wants to download it and play with it, you are welcome to do so. So with that, let's go ahead and run through our agenda. These are some of the different topics that we're going to be covering today when it comes to getting a return on investment, leveraging your mobile app. And so to start off, I want to talk about the app opportunity because it was just yesterday that once again I was asked a question which I've been asked far too many times to count, which is where is the relevance of apps in an overall mobile strategy today? With responsive websites becoming more sophisticated, you know, where does that fit in as far as a web versus an app scenario? And I love the question because it's something I've spent a lot of time looking at a lot of data. And again, you know, since we do work across both the web and native app spectrums, you know, really being able to see the different elements that both bring to the table. And so what you see on the screen here is a study that was done by Flurry. And I have a very similar study, which is almost identical in terms of the results, done by ComScore, that really highlights how people are using their mobile devices today. And this is a good foundation to understand why the revenue opportunities exist. So there's a couple of takeaways from this particular image. The first one is the fact that, you know, a typical American right now is using their phone about 3 hours and 40 minutes a day, not talking, like using the phone for other things. And if you look at the breakdown of that, you can see a lot of the things people are doing with it. A lot of folks are using it for social and communication purposes. A lot of people are using it for entertainment or things that I like to call, you know, kill time opportunities. And then there's, of course, a great percentage of people there that are using it for things that are productive, things that are helping them get things accomplished. And then you can see there that there's Chrome and Safari, and really what that represents is the amount of time being spent in the browser on the device, on the phone or tablet. And so about 10% of that time is being spent, you know, with those mobile websites or responsive websites. About 90% of the time is being spent with apps. And this is one element of the story when it comes to a mobile strategy. Responsive websites, on average, have higher traffic than do apps in terms of unique users on a monthly basis. And so they bring a very important aspect to an overall strategy to the table. But that native app experience is really where a lot of the value add occurs. It's a lot of where the time is spent. And one of the things I find fascinating is when you overlay onto this the things that a typical association or society will offer to their membership, it really aligns quite well. You know, whether it's community, communications, peer networking, whether it's education, whether it's things like advocacy tools, news, things for productivity, you know, it really does lay over very, very well. And so this is one aspect to begin to understand the opportunities when it comes to revenue. The second question, of course, would be, well, then why the event app? Why are we talking about that one as a foundation for being able to generate revenue? And there's a couple reasons for this. You know, one thing also that we have found when looking at the data is that the average American is only touching 25 apps a month. So over the course of those 30, 31 days, only 25 apps are getting tapped on their device. And if an app is not one of those 25 over a period of months, the odds are it gets forgotten about or deleted. And so when it comes to associations and societies, the idea is that we want to have an app that people are going to use and they're going to keep on their phone. And the event app is actually a really good use case for this, because when we see some of the other apps in there in the general populace that have done very, very well, of course the social apps, the Facebooks and the Snapchats and Instagrams, I mean, these are the ones that get a ton of usage. Facebook is the #1 used app on everyone's device statistically, and so those things that facilitate communications, facilitate relationships, that's a very important part of it, and that is something that an event app will do, that Event Central facilitates in a number of different ways. The other things that we've seen grow, for instance, are apps that have to do with daily behavior. So for all of you Starbucks fans out there, the number of unique users using the Starbucks app doubled in the last 2 years. And what's interesting is if you're a Dunkin' Donuts fan, that one quadrupled. But again, that was a daily behavior. It was something that people were doing to get a daily, in this case, their daily caffeine. And one of the things, again, you'll see leading up to an event, during an event, and even a little bit after an event, is you'll see that daily behavior occurring. During that month, the event app will be one of the top 25. Then you've got your offline location component. One of the big trends we've seen lately in terms of apps that are growing in usage is retail apps. The Walmart app, the Target app, the Kohl's app. And a lot of that was driven by in-store behavior. And again, that very much ties into an event experience where you'll see that people, obviously are on-site, the mobile device is their go-to device, and so you'll see a huge spike in usage. And then on-demand services, the idea of being able to provide information to attendees at the time they need it, and on the device they happen to have. And that's very similar in a lot of ways to what we see with some of the other services that are being offered. So the event app really does provide a good use case for getting high adoption within your member base. And one of the things we're going to be talking about, as we get into the webinar, is how to leverage that year-round, because that becomes not only an engagement opportunity, but also a revenue opportunity. But it begins, in many cases, we're seeing with an event app. So talking about some revenue options, and I'm going to first explain sort of what Event Central provides. Again, if you're using a different app, hopefully it has a lot of the similar features. But we're going to talk about what the opportunities are, and then we're going to break down what SGA did with these opportunities. So for starters, the idea of having an unlimited number of rotating ads. So Event Central does support ads. For those in the medical arena, you do have the ability to control some of the pages that those ads appear on, but the idea that you can have as many of them as you want. So that is one opportunity for revenue. Another one is the ability to have sponsor pages, and it can even be turned into navigation items. And so that's another area, and there is some differences between ad revenue versus sponsor revenue. Another one is with product categories and exhibitor levels, and so this a lot of times has to do with exhibitors and sponsors and being able to tag them appropriately, give them visual prominence, things like that. Another option it supports is the ability to sponsor sessions and display that within the app. Another one is sponsor notifications, and this one obviously has to be used sparingly. We can't overwhelm our attendees with those. But again, things that are limited oftentimes have higher value, and so that's another option that we've seen a number of organizations use. I also included beacons in here because we've seen a great trend with beacon-triggered notifications as a revenue generation tool. And that actually comes in a couple of different ways, and I'll use one of my favorite examples from SNMMI. One of the things that they were looking for, they were having a challenge with, was membership renewals. And so one of the things they did was they set up at the registration desk at their annual meeting, they had several staff there to help with membership renewals on site. And they even were doing a contest where they would give away a drawing for an Apple Watch. Well, their director of IT, since the Event Central app does support beacons, the director of IT went in and he set up a beacon at the registration desk. Mind you, didn't tell the staff that was there that he was doing this. He was going to experiment. And then he set up a notification so that when anyone got within 20 feet of the registration desk, that a notification would show up on their phone. It would actually, it's a push notification. It would, buzz the phone, show up on the lock screen that said, if you renew today at registration, you'll be entered in to win an Apple Watch. Well, almost immediately upon turning it on, a line started to magically form of people being like, I'd like to renew my membership, and pretty much freaked out the staff that were there. They were like, what is going on? In fact, at one point, the IT director he actually turned the beacon off to let the line die down, and then turn it back on, and the line reformed again. And so, just an interesting way to leverage the technology to drive, in this case, revenue through membership renewals. But that same technology could be used to put a beacon underneath a buffet table if you have somebody sponsoring lunch at your conference. So, and being able to send a message thanking them for the sponsorship. So some different things there. And then one other thing I do want to highlight is that we've found in talking with a number of organizations that not all of them have the bandwidth staff-wise to sell sponsorships and advertising. And so one of the things that Results Direct has done is, through one of our partnerships, is now offering sponsorship sales services. So if an organization needs help or assistance or input on how to sell ads, how much to charge, and actually the ability for someone else to do the sales for them and have a revenue share, that is now a service that we're also providing to allow for organizations to turn their app into a revenue generator. So those are a couple of examples. So let's talk about the SGA story and what happened there. So basically, Southern Gas Association started using Event Central back in 2014. And like many organizations that we've spoken to, there wasn't really a precedent for using the app to generate sponsorship and advertising revenue. And so they really needed to sell it to the potential sponsors. And so one of the things they did, which worked very, very well, is they actually, in that first event, they actually ran house ads, internal ads, through the app. And then at the end of the conference, they went into the back office, they pulled the analytics, and then they went to their various sponsors and said, this is the number of views you would have gotten, this is the number of click-throughs that you would have gotten if the ad had been yours and not this house ad that we ran. And that was extremely effective for them. They immediately had interest, they immediately had people interested in signing up for the next event. And so the first year they made about $1,500 of revenue. The second year they did it, which was 2015, they made about $5,000 in revenue, and then by last year they made over $8,000 in revenue from ads and sponsorship. But I think one of the really cool parts of that story is the fact that by the third year, they had sponsors asking a year in advance for the sponsorship. So it was no longer a last-minute thing. It was pretty much as soon as the conference was over, there was folks lined up to basically get the sponsorship. And so a very successful track record, and this year, of course, we're very excited to see what they're able to do with it in 2017. And again, just to highlight that it does depend a lot on the market that you're in and the size of the organization. As I mentioned earlier, SNMMI, just for one sponsorship, charges $15,000. So with that, the second reason that this was such a good opportunity for SGA is that they run a lot of events. And so when they first started, they were really using Event Central just for their major conferences. And Event Central is a multi-event app, so you can run as many events throughout the year. And it's a persistent app. It stays on the person's device. And so they can just go in and the next event comes up and they can select it, and then they can continue to use it. And so what was interesting about this is that after that, they expanded to some of their minor conferences. They're now running 13 events through it between their major conferences and their minor conferences. And then this year, they're even expanding it now into some of their training workshops, which they run about 50 of those per year. And these are just small training workshops, but there is opportunity for monetization as well as cost savings with that. And so the nice thing is that the Event Central license for unlimited events, ranges from $5,000 a year to $10,000 a year for a branded app in the store, and that does not even include multi-year discounts, which can get that price even lower. So as it is, it becomes a point where even last year, they were almost at a break even where the sponsorship paid for the entire service. And again, with many organizations who are charging higher dollar figures for sponsorship, it actually is a revenue generator. So with that, the second big area of ROI for SGA was in cost cutting when it came to printing and shipping. And Gary and I love this photo. This was for an environmental conference for environmental professionals, and the handouts for it were 3 3-inch thick binders of material, which not only wasn't really in line with sort of the environmental aspect that they were trying to promote, but also very expensive, definitely expensive to ship these. And of course, when they were handing them out at the conference, nobody was super excited to try to pack this into a carry-on and get it home. And so one of the things that they started to do is use the event app to replace a lot of the printed materials. And in fact, last year they were able to eliminate printing and shipping from 5 of their different events, and the cost savings on that alone was another $8,000. So just between revenue and cost cutting this past year, that's a total then of $16,000 that was recouped by the organization, and again, well over the amount that they actually paid for their license. So another area of increased ROI had to do with staff time. And there's a couple of examples that I'll highlight for this, but one of the things that they were able to leverage is the fact that the Event Central platform does integrate with ACGI's Association Anywhere. So there are standard integrations that have been put into place. There's flexibility for other integrations. It will support the various responsive self-service plugin modules. So the fact that a lot of that overlap work can be reduced because of the two systems being able to talk to each other is one of the major advantages that SGA was able to take and implement. So, but as far as using the Event Central platform, what helped them in terms of saving staff time was, number one, a responsive back office portal. What that means is that staff could go in and change event content on their own, did not have to coordinate with Results Direct or ACGI. They could do it directly through a web portal. So especially for events that might be in a different time zone, that's something that provides a lot of advantages. There's also no additional cost for the back office, so it was something that was just included as part of the regular license. But probably one of the most powerful things about that responsive back office portal is the fact that it will work on any device. In fact, it was kind of a funny situation at this past Knowledge Days event earlier this year, or late last year, I should say. When we were there, one of the things, I was on site, I was attending, and I noticed that one of the session times was incorrect. And so I went up to a staff member and pointed it out, and I said, would you like me to fix it? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. And I was able to pull out my iPhone. Within about 2 minutes, I logged into the back office, made the change, hit save, and within 5 minutes, everyone's device at that event was updated in the background. They didn't have to hit a refresh button. It just kind of magically happens. So that ability to make those kind of changes on site could definitely be a big stress reducer as well as a time saver. There's also the ability to use upload tools, so you can upload data in bulk. But again, the APIs was one of the big things that SGA took advantage of. And one of the powers of that is that they are two-directional. So this is Ashlyn Smith. She's the program manager over at SGA. And one of the things Gary shared with me is that historically, the 2 weeks leading up to the event were a pretty stressful time for her. And one of the biggest time consumers was that when there was a change to the program, which there was a lot of changes to the program in those last 2 weeks, she had to then go in and update multiple systems to make those changes. And it was consuming most of her time to do so. And so what they decided to do is, in this case, they decided to make the Event Central platform the primary platform for the schedule. So that was the authoritative source. And then they used the APIs to be able to take that schedule, pull it out of Event Central, and actually display it on their website as well as into their other systems. And so what that meant was that they could just change it in one place and then it would be updated everywhere automatically. And that alone, Gary was sharing with me, cut her time in those 2 weeks down so significantly that she was able to then really focus on a lot of the other aspects of the meeting and really serving the attendees that were going to be there. And so it was a huge win, not just from a time saving, but also just from a general morale and reducing of stress, which was good. I'm just going to touch on this one briefly, which is the credibility and the member value aspect of it. But it does, I guess I should say it this way. Many people judge an organization based on their app, and unfortunately or fortunately, as the case may be, our standards of what makes a good app is being driven by apps out there like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and very, very high quality apps. And so having an app that mirrors that level of quality, utility, and usability is really, really important. So again, that's just one aspect. And with SGA, this wasn't a huge revenue factor for them because they are a trade association, but for many organizations, that credibility can be driving attendance. It can help drive membership. It's just a piece of the equation. One of the final topics that I want to go through is talking about how the event app and how, in general, apps that are year-round do also offer opportunities for revenue generation. And to understand this, I think part of the story is understanding what the app does in terms of building content and building tools that can be used year-round. And so one of the things that Event Central does support is a lot of networking and relationship building. And so part of that is the ability to favorite people that you may have met at an event. I just got back from attending the CES CEO conference, which was a tremendous event. But one of the things I appreciated is that CES has been using Event Central for a couple of years. And so when I've been at other events like their annual meeting and I've met people and I favorited them, well, when I showed up at the CEO event and downloaded the event app, all of the people that I had met at previous events who were in attendance at this event that I was at last month, I could actually, the app would tell me that they were there. And it was a great way for me to know in advance who I wanted to network with. There's the ability to send private messages to those people. There's the ability to obviously engage through a timeline and things like that. And so the reason that this becomes an opportunity is because those relationships, those connections, if you will, as well as the content, has year-round value. And so one of the things that we're doing with Event Central in our upcoming release is we're actually extending the functionality to go beyond just events. So the ability for an organization to provide a menu that events is one part of it and has all of the standard event technology, but also a place that they can provide information about their event. They can provide news feeds. They can provide links to their career center. They can have member-only content. They can provide advocacy content. But one of the things that I particularly like is the fact that it surfaces those relationships that are developed in those different meetings in one place. So one place with all of the messages that took place, one place with a list of all the people that I've met at all of the events that I've gone to. These different aspects that provide more of that year-round engagement. And of course, this then provides another place for not only advertising and sponsorship that can be included now as part of the overall app in addition to the individual events, but also that there's now another communication platform that's a year-round communication platform regardless of which event someone had gone to for notifications to be sent, even push notifications to be sent. And so again, another opportunity there, limited for notifications that could be sponsorship related, very limited, not too many. But that's another aspect of it. So in addition, one of the other aspects of the new version that's coming out is going to be the space for marketing upcoming events. And we're really looking at ways to help drive a growing attendance from event to event. And so another platform for supporting that. So that's a couple of the things that SGA has done, some of the things that they're very excited about. These are actually Gary's summary points. I figured I would just take them verbatim from when he and I were presenting at PCMA. But a couple just to go through these and explain, understanding the market for sponsorship and then get, help when needed. So that was something that they did. They took a look at who are the opportunities in terms of sponsors, and then got some market intelligence to figure out how to approach that, and again came up with some innovative ways of proving the value. Another thing that Gary has constantly been looking for is other non-revenue ROI opportunities. So including now expanding into those training sessions that they're doing, again, printing cost savings, shipping cost savings, and then also enhancements to networking from those events, because when a lot of the trainings are for new members of the organization, and so they're meeting each other, and then when they go to the larger events, they now already have people that they know, and the app will tell them that they're going to be attending as well, and they can reconnect with those people from the trainings. Finding a technology organization with whom you can partner That was his way of being very nice to us. I guess maybe he and I were on stage together, right? But you know, we have had a great partnership, and we have bounced ideas off each other all the time, which has been really great. And then, of course, similar to what they've done, the idea of starting and then growing it as credibility is earned with the organization. So they started just with a couple of events, and then as those did very, very well, they started to expand into other events, trainings, you know, and the app will even support, because it's private, you can have private meetings and whatnot. You can have committee meetings, board meetings. There's a lot of different ways it can be used, and of course, none of it impacts the licensing costs. So those are a quick summary. In terms of next steps here, I wanted to provide opportunity for questions that may have come up, and then also if there's interest, there's some additional resources we can recommend. One of the ones that's been very popular lately is you know, tips and tricks for promoting an app. I have often had people, you know, when they're asking me about mobile strategy, you know, ask about, you know, how do we encourage people to download an app? How do we encourage people to use the app? And so that's a resource that we did put together, and I can share. If you want to drop me an email, I'm happy to send you a copy of it. But with that, Marcy, I am about wrapped up on this, and definitely in a place that we could field a few questions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Michael. That was lots of great information. I want to encourage our attendees, if you have any questions for Michael, feel free to use the questions section on your GoToWebinar console over to the right, and we will get those answered. Since we have a lot of ACGI customers on the line, Michael, can you talk about how Event Central integrates with Association Anywhere to help organizations save time and resources?
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to do that. So there's a couple of different aspects of how Association Anywhere and Event Central work very, very well together. One of them is similar to what we talked about before, is the ability to use the APIs to pull in information that could range from schedule, session information, exhibitor information, speaker information, resources, roster of attendees. All of those things can be pulled in via API from Association Anywhere into Event Central, so reduce a lot of overhead, you know, from that perspective. Also, the two-directional aspect of the APIs, so that information, you know, from Event Central can be pulled out and used in other places. There is also the ability to use Event Central as a for restricted access, that you could actually use Association Anywhere credentials to restrict access to different events if you wanted it for just members or just attendees or things like that. So that's another aspect where the APIs come into play. And then the other one that's pretty cool is those mobile modules that ACGI has developed. Those plug in wonderfully into the Event Central platform, because Event Central allows for a lot of flexibility in the navigation for each individual event. So the administrator can go in, they can reorder navigation, they can relabel navigation, they can turn modules on and off. But one of the cool things they can do is they can create their own navigation items for any given event. And one of those is using a WYSIWYG editor, so they can create content that way. But the other one is using our cloud-based extensions, and those responsive mobile modules that ACGI has developed, those actually will plug in to that cloud-based extension option and display within the app. So there's a couple of different ways that, you know, based again on what each customer has developed within Association Anywhere, that can then be used in Event Central without having to duplicate the work.
Okay, great. Here's another question that came in. Can you discuss what options my organization has if we don't have staff who can sell sponsorships or advertising?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny because over the years, I've been asked that a lot when someone is using Event Central, and then they're like, well, we really want to sell advertising, but we have no idea what to charge. What's the average cost here? What does someone normally pay for this? And it's funny because all of the various case studies that we've done and the informal conversations I've had with different association thought leaders, it just wildly varies. And so it wasn't really a situation where there was one, you know, $1 figure. It's like, oh, you could sell an ad for $500. Well, one organization would sell it for $500, another one would sell it for $5,000, and another one was selling it for $35,000. So it was literally this huge spectrum. And so one of the things that we did is we have been strategically partnering with organizations that are experts in their field. And one of the organizations that we partnered with are experts when it comes to revenue generation through advertising and sponsorship. And so with that now in place, they actually will come in and essentially take a list of potential sponsors, determine what the market value is, actually reach out to those potential sponsors, do the sales for them, and then actually do a revenue share of the amount that's generated back with the organization. So they literally will handle it. It's a turnkey solution, so there's not even really any staff time needed at all for that, and it just becomes a revenue generator. So again, if staff has, or if an organization has in-house staff that can do those things, then that's a great opportunity. But if they don't, and a lot of the small staff organizations I've noticed sometimes don't have that, then leveraging a third party can be a great opportunity to generate revenue without having to add any staff burden.
Okay, good. Well, I think that concludes all of the questions we've gotten. I don't see any more coming in right now. I'd like to thank our participants today who sent us those questions and have stayed on for the webinar. We appreciate it. And thank you, Michael, for joining us and for a very impressive presentation. Do you have any final words? Is there anything else other than how to reach you, which is up here on the screen? Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
Sure. Well, I will just say that mobile is one of my favorite topics to talk about ever, and so if anyone has ideas they want to bounce around, I have the conversation of I had this great idea for an app like all the time, like wherever I go. So I'm always excited to talk about ideas, and so if there are any follow-up questions or just general ideas that want to be brainstormed, I'm very available for conversations and would love to have a chance to talk about it. So. But yeah, that's about it. Otherwise, it was fun. Again, one of my favorite topics and one that I've enjoyed learning about and being able to share.
Great. Thank you for that. I'd just like to remind everyone to please stay on to the conclusion. We are just about done here. I'm just going to take control of the slides once again. And just wrap up with a few final thoughts supporting this webinar. So if you have any colleagues that are interested or if you want to watch it again, all you have to do is go to ACGI's website once we've posted it and register to view the webinar through GoToWebinar. So thank you everyone for joining us today, our customers and prospects and everyone else in the association and credentialing world. We hope to catch you soon at one of our upcoming webinars. And thanks again so much to Michael from Results Direct. Have a great day, everyone.